Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for being here today. Today's video is going to be my July wrap-up. And I don't know about anyone else, but I felt like this was the month of perpetually starting books and not finishing them. I don't know what happened. For the first 2 weeks of July, I think I started 5 books. And some of them were just a few pages, and then others were I got legit a third or halfway through and then would just stop reading. So I don't know. I ended up reading some fantastic books this month, but for the first 2 weeks, I was just there's nothing in me right now that wants to read. But we're back on track. I feel like I just literally an hour ago finished a fantastic romance. And so I'm really excited to talk about these books with you today. But before we get into the books, I do want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Likewise. I am so excited to be working with them again. So thank you to everyone that's been clicking the link in my description, because that's what tells Likewise you guys actually like hearing me talk about them. So I really do appreciate it. And if you don't know what Likewise is, it is an app that helps you find things you'll like based on things you've already liked. So that's within movies, TV shows, podcasts, and books. But basically what you do is that you immediately when you set up your profile, you tell them here are some romances I've liked, some thrillers I've liked, some fiction I've liked, and then the app will say, okay, great, now I combine all this information and now I can give you more recommendations of things you might like based on things you've told us you've liked. And then it's really cool because it kind of sets it up almost like a dating app where it'll say here's a new book you might like based off of this other book you liked. And then you can either swipe it away if you're not interested, or you can save it because you're interested in it, or you can say you've already read it and then tell the app if you liked it or disliked it, and then it just makes it even smarter, so it can give you even better recommendations. So I actually just made my first ever list on there, and it's just a couple of the books that I've really loved in 2021 so far. So yeah, that's on my profile if you'd like to give it a look-sees. So if that sounds like something you'd like, you catch my drift. No, if that sounds like something you'd like, you can click the link in my description to sign up for free. And I just want to thank Likewise again for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the books. So as I said, I was having a bit of a rough start in July for the first 2 weeks, just nothing was sticking for me. And I was trying all different types of genres, all different types of books, and nothing was really clicking until I got to this first book, which was Sharks in the Time of Saviors. Holy smokes! I had mentioned this in a previous video, but I've been really drawn to water-themed based books, or ocean-themed or vacation-themed, anything that has to do with the water, and I got a few recommendations for Sharks in the Time of Saviors, and this was also a cover that I kept seeing, and the yellow to orange gradient and the shark just kept catching my eye, and oh my heavens, was this book fantastic. To me, it was just a magical story with such deep-rooted sibling dynamics and resentment and anger and love. I've mentioned this, but this year I've really started to discover how much I love reading about siblings because I am a sibling of 3. And so Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. Whoa, my dogs are freaking out. Hold on. Just hold on a second. My dogs are losing it. Okay, sorry, I've calmed them down now. And now we can get back to talking about Sharks in the Time of Saviors. So as I was saying, I've really been drawn to sibling-based books, like Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng and Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Both of those really explored sibling dynamics and sibling resentment and just how each sibling sees their family differently based on how they're placed in the family, and this book had a similar theme throughout. Hi, it's Editing Noelle, and I'm here to explain to you what this book is actually about, because I went on and on and on in this clip talking about how much I like the sibling dynamics that I didn't actually explain what the book's about. So Sharks in the Time of Saviors follows 3 siblings. We also get some perspective from the mom, but it really is the 3 siblings that are all born in Hawaii and raised in Hawaii. And one day the family goes on a little boat trip, and one of the sons, Noah, falls into the water and is saved by a shark. The shark picks up the son in its jaws and delivers him back to the boat. And then from there, Noah already really had a great connection with nature and just with the planet itself, and just seems to know and understand things about the world that not everyone else does. But after this shark incident, so much starts to unravel, and you see how this one shark incident starts to transform into more incidences, and then it goes on into a big ripple effect through the siblings' lives. So I hope that sold it, because this book is truly fantastic. I loved it so much, and now I'll let regular Noelle get back to it. There's some tragedy, there's some understanding, there's some acceptance between the siblings, and it was just a marvel. So I really, really enjoyed this one. I thought it was so strong, and I thought the writing was fantastic, especially for a debut novel. Like, I cannot wait to read whatever else this author comes out with. So I really loved it. Another book that I read this month was Red at the Bone, which was a book that I'd had my eye on for months, and I'm so glad I finally read it, because I felt like it was exactly the type of story I've been craving for years, and this book just did it so right. And what I mean by that is, basically, there's a central conflict in this novel, which is that a daughter has had a baby as she was still a teenager. So she gets pregnant when she's still in high school, and she has to then tell her family, and her family's not super happy about it, but it's gonna happen nonetheless. And then the mother herself is really scared and feels a lot of regret and remorse towards her life without a child. And so the rest of the book kind of unfurls, and what I loved is that there's this kind of central conflict, which is the pregnancy and what that means for this family. But then each kind of chapter is from another person's perspective on who was affected by this pregnancy. And so I don't know, there's something about having like one plot point that everyone is getting a slice of, and it's some people that are living in the moment when it first happens. Some of it's from the child when they're an actual child, and then when she's growing up, and then just like different stages of life for the mother, and then the grandmother, and the husband figure, and I just thought it was excellent. Just trust me when I say this book was so well done. I really enjoyed how it was told. I really enjoyed the writing. I also read it with the audiobook, and the audiobook was wonderful because each person gets their own narrator, which is similar to Sharks in the Time of Saviors. I love it when an audiobook has multiple narrators, and both of these had that, and I just thought it was so good. So yeah. All right, another book that I read this month was The Deep. Now, this book checked a lot of boxes before I started reading it. Like, just the synopsis alone, I was so interested because it has to do with water, and as I've mentioned, I've really been into water-themed books lately. It has to do with the Titanic, which is like my favorite subject to study, and then it also has to deal with kind of paranormal, haunting type of themes, which are my favorite type of horror, right? If I had to choose like a favorite type of horror movie, I love paranormal haunting type things. So synopsis was great. First third of it was great. And then by the second 2/3, I had just lost a lot of my interest. I understand why a lot of people like it. The author puts a lot of historical facts into it, like real people that were on the Titanic are also featured in this book. And it talks a lot about the Britannic, which is one of Titanic's sister ships that was turned into a World War I hospital ship. And so there's like a lot of historical context in this book, which I could see why people love. And the haunting is really cool, and there's like a seance in a stateroom. Like, it's really cool, but I feel like a problem that I have with thrillers and mysteries is sometimes when the author tries to catch you off guard with the twist, they end up introducing other little mysteries to kind of throw you off, and that's what this author did. And I could see how that works for a lot of people because it can be really like, like when you're enveloped by the story. So I get why people would like that. However, for me in this book, I felt like the little mini mysteries we were getting was taking away from the overall impact of the actual mystery, which is like, who is haunting the Titanic and like, why are they so upset at the passengers? So I really wanted to know that, and yet we kind of kept getting other characters that didn't actually add to the impact of the overall twist, and lots of side stories, lots of characters, lots of fictional and real characters, which was interesting to kind of like, emotionally grapple with, because like I do know the history of a lot of the people she was writing about. And so then when they're doing like these haunted things, I was like, whoa, like my brain just like could not really wrap my head around it. So I think that it is a fun book, and I think that there were some creepy parts, but overall it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I think that if there were just a few less mysteries, it overall would have hit me harder. Or if it was just shorter, maybe that's it. But yeah, that was The Deep. All right, another book that I read this month was Ariadne. I was so excited for this book when I first saw it because the cover really reminds me of Circe. Hold on, let me grab it. So I was really excited for Ariadne because I really enjoyed Circe, and so I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna feel just like Circe. But then I was afraid to start it because I was afraid it was gonna be too much like Circe, and I was just gonna basically like reread the same type of book. But wow, was I wrong. I mean, there are a lot of similarities between the two, definitely, because it follows like one woman through like Greek myth, kind of, and also like Ariadne is like the niece of Circe, so like in that it's kind of related, and they both take place on islands that they're kind of exiled to, so there are quite a few similarities now that I'm saying it out loud. There are definite similarities, but the adventures are very different, and their reasons for exile are very different, and overall, I really, really, really enjoyed Ariadne. It starts with like the myth of the Minotaur and the Labyrinth and Theseus, and then it moves on to an island exile, and another god comes into the picture, and it's just such an adventure, and there's some really sad moments and some really like anger-filled moments and some joyous moments and some loving moments, but overall I thought it was so good. So if you've had your kind of eye on it, but it did remind you of Circe and you're like, oh, I don't know if I really want to read it, if it's just going to be the same story, it's definitely not the same story. Although similar, not the same story, and such a great intro. And then, I mean, I feel like the first few chapters were great because it focused on the Minotaur, and then it moves on to this island exile, and then it moves on to a whole other plot of drama, and I just thought it was great. So highly, highly recommend. All right, the next book that I read is a book that was on my 21 reads I want to read in 2021. This is a new release. It comes out in August, and I am so in love. I'm so in love. If you guys know how I feel about the Kiss Quotient and the Bride Test, then you know how excited I am that this book is finally out, and that is The Heart Principle. Oh my god, I'm so excited it's here, and I'm so surprised that I read it in less than a day. Or not surprised because how much I loved it, but surprised that I actually like found time to read it in a day. Like, that's how invested I was in this book. I went to bed thinking about it last night, I woke up thinking about it today, and it was just so good for so many reasons. The love is so loving and tender and wonderful, and the steaminess is satisfying to say the least, and overall, I just loved it. I loved it so much. So the Kiss Quotient's like my favorite one just because it like feels like coming home. Like, it's just such a fun romance, and I've read it twice now and I've loved it each time so much. But I related so much to the main character in this book. Her name is Anna, and I related to her on so many levels. Like, there were so many things that came up in this book that I highlighted, that I like left little post-it notes for, that I starred and like just circled, and oh my god, there were so many passages where I was like, how did she know what I needed to read right now? But also like really random things I've also done and like been to. I mean, these books, this whole series takes place in the Bay Area, so there was a lot of things that I've been to. Like, there's this night event that happens at the Palace of Fine Arts in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and there's a whole scene that takes place at this like nighttime event, and I've been to that nighttime event. So I was sitting there like, what is happening? Like, it was such a specific thing for her to choose, right? It wasn't like something like, oh, let's just get ice cream by the Golden Gate Bridge, because that would have been like a I don't even know if you can get ice cream by the Golden Gate Bridge, but like, you know, like there could have just been like an obvious thing to write about. And then she wrote about this night event that only happens like once a month in San Francisco. And I've been there, and it was so cool to read that. And I feel like, just like if you live in the Bay Area, then these books are even more special because you recognize street names and places that they visit and businesses they go and streets they walk down. And I love that element of it. I loved Anna's character so much. I love Quan. I already knew that I loved him. Like, he was already a character that I wanted a main perspective from. And so getting a whole story from him and seeing their romance bloom was just a balm to my soul. Like, it was everything I could have ever wanted in the final book of this series. I think it's the final book. I think it was just 3 that were coming out in this series. If there's more, holy hell, I cannot wait. But it was just so good, in my opinion, and I loved it. So I'm gonna say The Kiss Quotient is still my favorite, but this one is like so close to being number 1. And then The Bride Test is also so close to being number 1. So I just think it's a fantastic series, and I'm just so glad that this is coming out in August. So I hope you all get your hands on it. I'm so glad I read it, and I loved it. All right, another book that I read this month was a book for my book club, which is the Late Night Book Club with Elias and Joel. And our June book was The Song of Achilles. And I read it in July because our live show was in July. This is a reread for me. I really loved it the first time around. I really loved reading it the second time because the second time around I was focused more on the minor characters and less on just the story. And like, the story is still beautiful and is like so fun to read, but I just remember the first time I was just like, what's gonna happen, what's gonna happen, what's gonna happen, because I actually didn't know what was gonna happen. Because I've never read the Iliad, so I was like, I don't know what's going on here. And so the first time it devastated me. The second time was also super impactful, but I was just so into the little side characters. I thought that they were great, and it was so fun to like really sit with them this time around and just, you know, pay more attention to them. So really loved it the second time around, and really glad we read it. So while we were on the live show for The Song of Achilles, right towards the end, I had asked, like, does anyone have any recommendations for like a Hades and Persephone retelling? And I got a few people that said Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. And they had told me, like, in the comments, they had said, like, it's an adult romance. So it's not like as serious as this one, but it definitely like follows the original story of Hades and Persephone, but in a more modern day setting. And so I picked it up, and I thought it was really fun. It was a really cool way to distract myself from real life, and it really helped me in this like really weird, not even like reading slump, it was more like reading claustrophobia, because it felt like most of the books I was picking up weren't working, and then I put them down, and then I read these books, which were awesome, that I talked about in this video, but aside from these books, I felt like just nothing was really working for me, and Neon Gods ended up being like this super fun, quick book that I felt like was just fun and steamy. And I mean, it's straight up like just erotica, so it's not that romantic. If you're looking for like a romance that's not very steamy about Hades and Persephone, then I'd say go with a different book. And what I liked about it is that it is a modern retelling. So you have someone like Zeus, who's in the book, who kind of like rules the upper city, and then there's like a river Styx, and then over the river there's the lower city, which is Hades territory, and then like Poseidon owns the like docks and piers. So it kind of aligns with the mythology, but it's still modern because it's like more of a New York setting. And then instead of like 13 gods, you have more like 13 officials that are like elected into their positions. So like Demeter is elected into the position of like being in charge of food and agriculture in the city of Olympus, which I thought was really cool. Again, Neon Gods is really steamy, so if you're not interested in that, then it's not even like something that you can kind of ignore because it's really prevalent in this book. But if you're looking for something that is steamy and fun and has like Greek feelings in it or kind of Greek retelling in it, I did think it was really fun, and I read it super fast, and I slept horribly all month, and this was a cool book to kind of, I don't know, give me something to do in the middle of the night, because I would literally like wake up at 3 a.m. and just lay in bed, and this was fun to just read instead of just staring at the wall. So anyway, those are the books that I read in July, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you had an amazing reading month. Let me know what you read, maybe what you're excited to read in August. Were you in a reading slump? Did you have a great reading month? Vent it out, let me know. And thank you so much again to Likewise for sponsoring this video. Again, if you'd like to download the app for free, you can click the link in my description, and it also lets them know that you are clicking the link. So it really does help my channel, and I appreciate you all so much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!